Yeah,
I remember
Shrek
being would have been in year 2 at the time, and someone was like, "Oh, I just saw Shrek in the cinema. It's so funny." And I was like, "What the hell is a Shrek?"
Yeah.
It's like shipwreck. I was like, a Shrek. I remember seeing it and be like, "This is such a lovely little satire." The fairy. I didn't say that as a kid.
Yeah. Oh, I think it was a winning satire of the fairy tale genre.
The future film podcast. I actually thought it was a really great satire of the fairy tale genre.
Good morning.
Morning.
I mean, or if you're listening to this in the evening or afternoon.
Evening and good
happy whatever time of day it is.
It's Sunday for us.
It is a Sunday. We are recording this on a Sunday, and it's nice to do that every so often because it is a gentler...
I like that we mix up the days of the week that we record, both out of practicality for life schedules and just for the different energy that it provides for an episode. There's something quite cozy about doing a weeknight evening.
Yep.
Like, I've got a podcast tonight. I'm a little bit more tired, but it's still nice, nourishing conversation. And then on the weekend morning, it's like, yes, like morning, caffeine buzz, George coming over, sun is shining. Podcast looks a bit better because everything's brighter.
Yep.
Done.
Yes. That's the thoughts that go into it. Well, we had an exciting week, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
We had a really fun week.
Got all dressed up.
We're very new to... We're still quite new to being invited to things, I think, right? Yeah. And we did get this invitation to go to something which I confess I hadn't heard of, which was the Newport Beach Film Festival UK Honours.
7th annual.
So
it is new as well.
It is, yes, relatively new in the scheme of industry awards. And it hasn't run since 2020. So there's been a 3-year hiatus. And, you know, at first I was like, the Newport Beach Film Festival? I must confess, I'm not familiar with that one. However, it was quite an exciting event because on the guest list and in attendance was all the talent that was up for things, which is rare for an event to have every single person, isn't it?
Yeah.
There, because I think they've done it quite smart because everyone was in town for the BAFTAs.
Yes.
So we literally... Didn't we? We literally did rub shoulders with the high and mighty.
So what was interesting about this is that it's not a public invite all the random people off the street into the event. It was very much industry people. So like, for example, you had directors and producers there, writers like Kazuo Shigeru, who wrote the script for Living, all kind of there. And it wasn't like, you know, the actors, after they did their bit, were really just mingling around, having conversations. So we're there, like, that Taron Egerton's right there.
Yeah,
Paul Mescal's right there. And like, for a long time, Bella Ramsey from The Last of Us, and I can't remember the one from Logan, were just like literally next to us having a conversation, doing their thing.
I think that's the thing. We we do get invited to stuff, which is really nice, but usually it is in that kind of influencer capacity.
In the room.
Take The Crown, for example. Like, obviously we had a great time and Netflix was laid on a great event, but
really good event.
We were obviously there. They were putting on a product of theirs, and we were there to engage with that and put it on our channels.
Document stuff, and then we talk about it afterwards, right?
But we got invited to this, and honestly, there was really no expectation to do anything with it. We realised very quickly on that we were one of maybe 2 influencers there.
Yes, that we recognised. I think there were probably more,
But we were meeting the room, but we were fine with that. It became very apparent this was a much smaller, safe space for this talent to be in.
And do you remember at the Crown, they had laid out things for like people to interact with?
Yes.
So you had like things to look at. There was many photo opportunities, all these different food, like it was there to be shared. Whereas here, it was like, you can take pictures and there's a little photo wall if you want to.
Yeah.
But really, it's an award show and it's celebrating people.
Exactly. And it's not like the talent are over there getting their photos, then they go through it.
They weren't funneled separately in a different channel. It was very much
It was laid out with like the Golden Globes layout with all the round tables, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And people were just mingling, and it was lovely to see the interactions. You know, Paul Mescal and Bill Nighy hugging.
Do you remember Bill Nighy? We literally just got our first drink, and Bill Nighy just walks straight through with the iconic glasses and hair,
brilliant,
looking exactly like his character in Living.
I mean, we should say that the full cast of people that were there was Bill Nighy, Gemma Chan, Letitia Wright, Naomi Ackie, Paul Mescal, Taron Egerton, Toby Jones, Amy Lou Wood, Daphne Keane, Lydia West, Michael Ward, Nicola Coughlin.
Michael Ward said hi to me.
Michael Ward gave us a hug.
Yeah.
Michael Ward gave us, I don't think he knew who we were. Yeah. We really just moved to get out of the way, actually.
Yeah.
And he embraced us.
From Empire of Light.
Empire of Light. Nice guy.
Yeah.
Shame about the film. Dolly Alderton was there. James intercepted Dolly Alderton to get a picture.
She was really lovely.
She was great fun, yeah.
I
really
did. My girlfriend absolutely loves your books, and she said, you are one of many boyfriends that comes up to me and says this. And she said to her friend, oh, another boyfriend here. Which she was really sweet.
I then tried to be like, I actually have read the book, and it made me cry on the tube. And she was like, oh no. And I was like, no, that's a compliment. we're riffing.
Yeah.
We're having a joke. Okay, who else was there? There was also Frankie Corio from After Sun, and a lot of and Bella Ramsey, of course, from The Last of Us, and Leo Woodall, who was in The Last of Us, who was the Essex lad in the last.
Yes, no, not Last of Us. You meant
I meant White Lotus.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
The Essex lad
That's
who
a
originally,
mashup.
when he came in, was such a lovely breath of fresh air, and then very quickly gave us all the ick.
The yeah.
When he got really drunk, and he was like, "Oh, I love Italy."
But it was. So we really realised quite quickly that we're like, oh, I guess we're just guests here.
We're just
we're
there to
actual
enjoy it.
guests.
And it was just great to be there with you and just watch famous people interact. I'm like, oh my God, Dolly Alderson and Bill Nye having a really big conversation like on stage. And it was Bella Ramsey and remind me the other two.
Frankie Corio from After Sun. So it's Bella Ramsey from The Last of Us, Frankie Corio from After Sun, and Daphne Keane who was in Logan and in His Dark Materials.
That's it, yeah.
So the youngest people in the room.
And they're all like roughly the same age. They all just like gravitated towards each other. And I could sort of overhear their conversation. And it was all like, oh my God, you're so great in that thing. It's like, yes, I've just seen that and you're so good. No, I think you're good. And then like, I love what you're wearing. No, I love what you're up. They were just adorable. And we kept having this conversation of like, should we go up and say something? Oh, it's really distasteful to go up to a famous person. And then we realized we have nothing of value to say to a famous person apart from, I really like you in that thing.
Yes.
But other than that, there's no reason to go up and say anything.
Which is why, I agree. I mean, and we let people have their conversations. Michael Ward giving us a hug was a surprise.
It wasn't really a hug. He like sort of brushed past, locked eyes, and I just thought, well, he's looking at me. I'll be like, really enjoyed your performance in Empire of Light, and immediately came in for this sort of embrace.
I would say it's an embrace,
which was very nice.
We did have, because the only other person we could really relate to was Edith Bowman, who
hosts these things,
famed BBC broadcaster and beyond, who's does a lot of these things, and we're like, really, she's the only person we can connect to on this level because she's not here as talent, and she's not here as an executive.
We spoke to her because she's obviously like fellow, talks about films as a job. Yeah. We've noticed that we see her hosting all of these events. We're always like, Edith Bowman just smashing it, covering all the things. So we went up to her and just said, really sorry to bother you. Hi, we just wanted to say hi because we both talk about films on the internet. We always see you doing these events. And she was really sweet.
She was absolutely lovely and genuine. And
she shared our reel to her Instagram, which she did.
So it was a really, I think we realised pretty soon on that we could relax and actually just enjoy it. And it was quite surreal to be like, there's just Gemma Chan walking past and Letitia right over there, and we were there with the. It was a pleasant honour to be in the room with those people.
Yeah,
we realised we had nothing to contribute. No one looked at us and went, "PULP Kitchen."
No, that didn't happen.
It was just an honour to be there, and it was very exciting.
If you wanted to see keep up with the antics when we do get invited to fun little premieres, little events, little award shows, you can follow us at PULP Kitchen Podcast on Instagram and TikTok, and we will always post the shenanigans we get up to. You can rate our outfits. You can do all sorts.
I knocked a full glass of red wine over James's trousers.
Yes,
which you washed up really well.
I did quite well. Stunning bathrooms in that Londoner hotel.
The Londoner Hotel in Leicester Square.
Absolutely beautiful. I had to stick my leg under the sink and get a towel. Then I had it under the dryer, and I literally had my leg like hucked up. And someone walks in, and they were like, "Spilt wine." I was like, "Yeah."
Also, it's such a movie moment because that was during Paul Mescal's speech, and I think Paul Mescal. You've got huge names in there, but Paul Mescal is the one that everyone's excited about. Yeah. And when the guy from the Newport Film Festival introduced him, I was thinking Paul Mescal has had a meteoric rise of an actor. I don't think it's happened since like Jennifer Lawrence has been so much like, this is the it guy. We're going for him. He was reeling off the things that he's going to be. And not only is he Oscar nominated, BAFTA nominated, he's on stage right now in Streetcar, but he's going to be in the next Gladiator. He's going to be in Richard Linklater.
He looks like a sort of
course he does, yeah. He's going to be in Richard Linklater's Merrily We Roll Along, which is a 20-year-long project adapting a Stephen Sondheim musical because he can sing. He's going to be in Carmen. It's like, and I was like, this is the guy.
I'm not surprised. I'm sure once Normal People was out, he would have been getting loads of offers. Because there's almost this idea that, okay, this person's just broken through when Normal People came out. If you can catch him at that perfect time, you get him for probably cheaper than if you get him 5 years later before he maybe wins an Oscar, right?
But even now, his stock is just risen. I mean, there's a film he's in coming out at the end of March called God's Creatures with Emily Watson, which I really want to see, which has got a really good write-up. But yeah, we're just, that's all the shenanigans we do. Keep abreast of it on the channels.
We will continue to pretend to be famous at future events if we get invited, so look out for that.
Okay, James, big movie out at the moment is Ant-Man Quantumania.
Yes.
It's on the side of buses everywhere, Paul Rudd's face. You've been to see it.
I did. Big Ant-Man film for Ant-Man. I feel like they've really sort of gone for Ant-Man 3. It looks bigger, everything feels bigger.
For small hero, big scale. Yeah.
How do you, Ant-Man for you? Where does he sit? Do you like an Ant-Man? How do you feel about him?
I love Paul Rudd.
Me too.
And I will always enjoy his presence. I loved Ant-Man in Endgame. His role in that. I didn't mind the first Ant-Man. I think it's that sort of like solid mid-tier Marvel.
Yeah.
I thought Ant-Man and the Wasp was a rung below that.
I found it pretty boring.
Pretty boring. Yeah. Uneventful. Just
the only thing that's interesting in that film is where he ends up in a post-credit sequence.
For Endgame.
That's the only reason you need, and you can watch that on YouTube in 5 minutes.
Exactly. And I must say, I haven't been to see it yet, but Quantumania, I'm a bit reticent because, I mean, you'll clarify for this for me in a second, but I look at it and I go, that looks like 80% of the runtime is not in the real world. It's in front of a green screen.
Cool at 90.
Cool at 90, Jesus Christ. And when I watched the trailer, I think I realized how important it is for a human audience to see daylight, to see a natural environment, and not to see people go, I also think, looking at it, I was like, there's a certain style to the Ant-Man and the Wasp, right?
Yeah.
The first two. I don't know where that fits in this much more standard Marvel template. I might be saying what you're already thinking. But anyway, yeah. Where do you sit with Ant-Man?
Well, yeah, Ant-Man I like. I think, I agree with you, in terms of how he sits with the other characters, he's a very sort of underappreciated, undervalued hero. Yeah. Like, he's the one that brings in the quantum realm time travel thing, and he sort of helps them do the time heist. So I thought that was cool. I also liked that in the very first Ant-Man, when, he starts learning the powers, and Michael Douglas is like, this is what we have to do. And he's like, great. Let's call the Avengers, which I kind of like, sort of bringing a bit of common sense to it and just asking that question, why don't we do that? And I always thought that was quite funny.
I think also as well with Ant-Man, it's a bit like Doctor Strange, which is that like they're fairly okay, but then they're elevated by, in Doctor Strange it's the psychedelic visuals, which are like, whoa.
Yes.
And in the Ant-Man it's the going very small and the way that everything's, when he falls through the bathtub and then the disco.
And I thought the fight scene at the end of Ant-Man, which took place in the girl's bedroom with the train, that's
Edgar
really
Wright's
funny.
Fingerprints.
And when like the train falls off, and in the small world it's this massive crash, but when they cut to a wide and it just like trickles off the track. I thought that was a really like funny way to sort of like play on that. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania.
That's it. That's all we need. I think we get it.
You texted me, how is it, the other day, and I said, I don't think the film is that bad, but there's so much I really don't like about it.
Right.
Let's start with the plot. The plot is, we're picking up with Ant-Man after Endgame. He's on he's slightly lost. He's like, I saved the whole world, and now what do I do? Who am I? What's my fight? What am I trying to do now? His daughter, Cassie, is also a budding scientist who's been sort of tinkering around with Hank Pym, and he sort of realizes, wait, what, you've been looking into the quantum realm? And Michelle Pfeiffer's character Janet, who, as we remember, spent 30 years in the quantum realm, who's very conveniently not told them anything about it, which they do address as a plot point. But if you bring up a plot point in your film but don't answer it, that doesn't mean that you've covered it. You've just shone a light onto it, because there's obviously quite a lot going on in the quantum realm, which we begin to understand. Michelle Pfeiffer's like, you're investigating the quantum realm, and she's creating this sort of almost like a beacon signal that allows you to communicate with it. And when she says, you're investigating it, the thing goes wrong and they're all in the room. Yeah. And in a very sort of Disney Channel original movie, they all go like, wait, and they're holding on and it's sucking everyone in, and they let go, and then we get very, very infinitely small into the quantum realm, which from my understanding is a realm that exists smaller than the atoms of our very world. And there's this entire universe which is neither between time or space. It's just this whole other thing. And from then, we are in complete green screen, blue screen, CG world. I'm going to get onto that in a minute. And what happens is our heroes are separated, and what they do realize is that Michelle Pfeiffer, or Janet, has had this whole history of life in 30 years, and there are entire humanoid societies that live in the quantum realm. And who is the nasty conqueror at the head of it is Kang. Kang is the new big bad in Marvel, for those who aren't familiar. He was briefly introduced in the TV series Loki and has been hinted at in lots of other things. And he's played by Jonathan Majors. And, ironically, I think Kang saves the day in this film, but he's a villain. That's my line. And here's the thing, right? As a film, I actually think it's kind of fun. It's fairly engaging. My main point about this film, and I think about Marvel in general, is I feel really uncool watching this film. I swear to God, I'm talking about cool relative to this whole like comic book film sphere of like nerd culture. Yeah. I swear to God, when I was really enjoying Marvel stuff a few years ago, and I'd be like, no, like it's Captain America Civil War. Like Iron Man and Captain America are gonna fight.
Yeah.
And like, you know, Spider-Man's gonna come in. And this is like, I'm really seeing these characters go head to head. And at the end, they like stab the shield into the chest. And like, this has consequence. And I felt like I was really part of something special. And that's what makes these huge franchise story things feel really cool. And I'm sitting there on my Saturday as a 28-year-old watching this film. And I'm just like, I feel really uncool watching this. Maybe I'm getting older. Maybe it's a byproduct of the way it's written, and I'm just, this isn't for me now. There are lots of like, you know, 9 to 12-year-olds in my screening who I think were like laughing and having a really good time. Maybe this review should be framed with that in mind. I don't have a younger brother, but I had that feeling that I was being dragged to go and take my younger brother to see a film that I didn't want to see. And that's my overriding feeling, is it really didn't feel cool. On green screen, I have a theory that I can tell when actors do not know what place or part of the script they are in at that certain scene. I think when you take an actor and you have a film script which is like this, and it's filled with 10 different chase scenes, 10 different locations, all wrapped in blue screen. And the actor's like, oh, what's the scene? Yeah, so you're running away from a giant robot. You're trying to get back to here. And you can just tell that they're not really looking at anything. And I don't really know that the actor knows exactly where they are. Versus when you shoot in a real location, I feel like that connection is just there. People have mentioned Spy Kids 3D. It really does feel like a full, like Tron. It's like the kind of like level we're feeling in. I really don't want my films to look like this. Yeah. I really don't find it interesting, compelling. I don't want this direction to happen. I find it just really numb and really just a little bit sad. Yeah. Did we not have Christopher Nolan come in 2008, 2005 and just sort of tell us like, no, like we could do this in a really cool way? Like, have we forgotten? I almost just remember Marvel films not being all the way there. I know Thor, Love and Thunder and Ragnarok kind of have been doing that, and I felt Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness I also really didn't like, are really going heavy on this. And I personally do not like my films looking this way. And as I said, it's about 90%. You've got about 8 minutes before they fall into the quantum realm, and the entire movie is just in infinite, warpy, and I get it, it's the quantum realm. It can look like loads of different things, but because it's not looked like anything I've ever seen before, I have no connection to it meaning anything. I've other theories. Again, these are very like broad things about the MCU. I personally think that the multiverse is killing the MCU story. If you have a story which at any time you can bring anyone back, you can introduce any new rule, and you can kill a version of a character, but it doesn't matter because there's a million other versions of them, all of a sudden nothing becomes interesting. And everything that's happening doesn't really mean anything. And I've stopped really thinking, well, if this happened, it doesn't really matter because they can just do whatever they want. I am predicting this now. This is not a spoiler, but I am telling you, I'm predicting this right now, for Avengers 5 and 6, Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, I'm telling you, Tony Stark is coming back.
Really?
It's not anything to do with that, man. I'm just telling you, because they can...
That seems cheap, though, if they did that.
I know, and I just really think that's what's going to happen, because if you can do anything, nothing matters. And I think it really kind of ruined Multiverse of Madness. I think in No Way Home, like, you do something really fun and exciting, and now I've seen the other films. What they've done in No Way Home is less interesting to me because you've just done it so many times now. And I do think it's ruining the story, and it's making nothing interesting or special.
That's really interesting. It's sad, really, because I assume, obviously, like Paul Rudd, great.
Paul Rudd's really good. I think
Bill Murray's in it.
Bill Murray's in it. It's a cameo, which at this point, Bill Murray's done so many cameos. I'm like, oh yeah, you've just done that again. Paul Rudd as Scott Lang. I like Scott Lang. He's a nice character. He's like I really want him to succeed, but he's given very little agency, and a lot of the plot just really happens to him, and he reacts in a way that I feel is very predictable. And I think at the end of the movie, he's kind of the same person as he was at the beginning. Again, I like bring up Captain America Civil War again for those characters being in a completely different place. Yeah. And it's like you just use this as a tool to introduce Kang, which I'm going to get onto, but sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, again, I haven't seen the film, so I'm just speaking about it from an outside looking in perspective. But what I do find interesting sometimes is when your review of the film that you've seen correlates exactly with what my expectation of how the film looks at, right? And it clearly shows that, like, despite the marketing, whatever, you can't see through it. And when you talked about Captain America, and I was thinking about,
just
like,
as an example.
take Winter Soldier, that first, like, those chase scenes with, like, by the way, Captain America and the Winter Soldier storyline is a side of the MCU I'm always less interested in. I like my superheroes to be, like, shooting laser beams and being able to fly, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, the highway chase in Winter Soldier,
Elevator scene.
all of that stuff is real and tactile and punchy.
He grabs the helicopter and he flips the arm.
Exactly,
Yeah,
it's real.
sorry.
And then, but when I look at this, I think, where is that?
Is that in the same universe?
And it's like a psychological, deep human thing. You can't have us in a CG world for so long and expect us to engage. It just doesn't happen in the same way.
Much. It really is.
Also, I'm thinking, haven't they missed the point of Ant-Man? Ant-Man, the enjoyment of Ant-Man and Ant-Man movies is when they focus on what's specific to him, which is his scale changing in relation to the real world around him. He goes really small or really big. Now,
and he goes in, like, familiar places.
Right, exactly. It's exploring, and we'll talk about that later when we get to Marcel the Shell, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right, which is actually, I'm realizing there's actually quite a correlation between these two films. But when I see the trailer, I'm like, because the quantum realm is not real, it's imaginary, it plays by its own rules, whether Ant-Man is big or small is irrelevant.
No.
You've completely you made it redundant, his skill. So he's just a guy. He's just Paul Rudd in a wetsuit.
In a suit.
Running around, being silly.
On Kang, because Kang, I think the main hook to see this film, I think it's Kang, and I think without that, if they had a one and done villain for this film, I really think it would have been bad. The fact that Kang is in this gives me, as someone who actually I do want to, like, come and enjoy this film. I really don't want people to think that I'm just trying to be really stuffy. And I'm trying to be really stuffy and sort of, you know, criticky and saying, oh, this Marvel film, I'm going to see it. Like, I actually really do want to, like, root for these films. And I want to recapture that feeling I get when I think there's something really special.
Lord knows we've invested enough time in it.
I put so much time into it.
It's a sunk cost kind of thing.
Like, I really want this to do well. So when you give me a character like Kang and I'm like, no, like, this is our big bad. We're building up to him. You've seen him in a TV show. Like, here it is. I think Jonathan Majors does a really cool performance. He does it ever so slightly, like, quiet but interesting performance. The problem with Kang, at least so far, is that he's a character that doesn't exist in space or time, from what I understand. He's, like, experienced through multiple timelines. So every time he speaks or someone asks him a question and he gives an answer, they'll be like, wait, what do you want to do? And he's like, it's not what I want to do. It's what I have done and what I'm yet to do and what I've already been doing. And I'm like, okay.
Like the architect in The Matrix.
Very much like the architect. So they did some explaining for Kang, and from my understanding, this isn't a spoiler, but, like, he is experienced in many different timelines, and he's already does know and doesn't know how his future's going to end up, but he's sort of trying to eliminate all timelines for his own one. And it's all very compelling, and it sounds like a cool idea, but I'm not really following.
Yeah.
Thanos is very simple.
He just wants
kill half.
He wants 5 stones and wants to destroy the half of the universe.
And if he gets 5 of them, he does it. I'm like, great, clean cut. I kind of, you know,
that's a plan you can write on the back of a post-it note.
Yes,
like, that's what you want.
So, you know, when you first saw Kang at the end of Loki, it was a very Matrix architect scene, and none of it really made sense. Yeah. But I'm like, yeah, but it's kind of intriguing. He's giving this really weird theatrical performance.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
And in here, he's much more physical, and he does a bit of fighting, and he's, you know, he's very aware that he's only a variant of himself. And, like, every time we see Kang, it's a variant of Kang.
I was going to say, how much does his character now correlate with his character at the end of Loki?
I don't want to say, because I think you have to see the film and see how that works out. But it's another issue of, we have an infinite number of copies of this person. So what does it really matter what you say to this one? Yeah. Again, why I think the multiverse is just a really bad plot tool. You've got too many. It's just the equivalent of when you play sword fighting. You go, no, I had my shield up. You could just invent anything. So therefore, I have nothing to predict. I've got nothing to grip onto and be like, oh, did you see that moment? That could mean something. It could mean absolutely nothing.
Do you know what makes me sad is that when you see a film that's called Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, you're like, Quantumania, that should be a really fun thing. Mania. Right, and it's Mania, and similarly with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, you're expecting, oh my God, they're going to really go for this and go crazy. And they didn't. And I'm sensing the same thing happened with what happened with Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, where you go, oh my God, Multiverse of Madness, it's going to be insane. And they go, yeah, we go to about two two different
We
multiverses.
zipped through 30, but then really we're kind of in two.
In two. What did you prefer of the two?
Ooh, I think this one. I really didn't like Multiverse of Madness.
yeah.
I disliked what they did with Scarlet Witch, and I just thought it gave me a bit of a headache, that film.
Yeah.
And then in the end, I really wasn't on board for what they did.
Can you tell me, and I haven't obviously seen it, I haven't read up about it online or anything, does this have a post-credit scene, like all the other post-credit scenes in Phase 4, which is a very famous person from a famous actor walks on playing a role that you've not heard of yet, and they go, but let me show you this.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, good. It bucks the
what was-
trend.
hold on, what was the
So
first
Harry Styles in Eternals. You're like, it's Harry Styles. She goes, let me show you this. It's Charlize Theron in Doctor Strange. She's like, yes, let me show you this.
That meant nothing to me.
exactly.
I don't care so much about Charlize Theron that my mind is blown. But I'm like, it's just a person dressed really weirdly in the street.
I believe that Marvel has the money to pay for a high-profile actor.
Yeah.
In Thor: Love and Thunder, it's Brett Goldstein as Hercules.
Yeah.
It's like, and now let me do this. Like, just showing me someone famous isn't enough.
That didn't happen. They were both very relevant to the subject matter of the film. The second one was one where it was a good one where you saw it and I got really lost in it, and then it cut, and I was like, oh no, don't. Oh, no. I was like really into it, and I was like, okay, that's kind of effective.
Did you? Sorry, at the end of last year, you said that Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special was the best piece of Marvel content you saw that year.
I still...
Do you think this is better than that?
I think Black Panther Wakanda Forever... It's kind of... I mean, it's a little bit of a harsh thing because one is like a really short thing. I'd say Black Panther Wakanda Forever I thought was like fine, and I think Holiday Special was also fine and mildly entertaining. Because at the moment they're tied, and everything else is like far below it.
Is Ant-Man... I'm sorry to rank them, but I'm just interested.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy this, Quantumania more than Love and Thunder?
More than Love and Thunder.
Love and Thunder is quite irritating, actually, when you think back about it.
The more people think back on Love and Thunder, they go, oh, this really wasn't what we wanted. Usually I'll see a Marvel film and I go, I cannot wait to rewatch that when I'm sick or on a lazy Sunday or on a hangover. And I don't have an interest with rewatching these. I will say there is a gag at the end of Ant-Man, just based on the kind of things we've been saying of this Ant-Man, of the MCU being slightly broken, the story becoming slightly ridiculous. There is a gag which is like Scott Lang's internal monologue, which I found really funny, and it works. But they're like, it's showing how aware they are of how ridiculous their own plot is becoming.
Right.
I don't want to ruin it because you should see it, but it was like, like the writers are aware that this is just getting a bit silly. It's funny. I found it funny because like this is just a bit interesting. A lot of people have criticized it for being not funny. I think it's sort of funny. I laughed 3 times aloud, once at the beginning, once in the middle, and then at the end, which is fine.
Once per act.
And look, I'm being really negative, and a lot of my points are broad MCU ones, but I think to sort of review this individually, it almost doesn't make sense. This is the start of Phase 5, and we're building up to this thing. I just am increasingly getting very little from these films, and and that's my main note. I just didn't feel cool watching it. I wanted a superhero nerd genre should make a lame person feel really cool for being a part of it, and I just think the MCU is really not achieving that. I feel kind of lame, like I should be out in the sun with my friends having a beer.
You mean it's the kind of like, I don't care what people think about this, I'm really enjoying it kind of mentality, but instead you're thinking, oh god,
why do I feel like I'm being aged out of this content? Maybe I am, maybe that's why. Maybe if you ask someone who's 10 years younger than me, they would be like, oh, it's really great. And is that a really arrogant thing to say? Probably. That's how I'm feeling.
Well, let us know your thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Do you agree with James? Do you disagree? Email your thoughts into hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com.
So another film I'm really interested in seeing, which you managed to see this week, also about small things from small perspectives, is Marcel the Shell with shoes on.
Marcel the Shell with shoes on.
You see what I did
Marcel
there?
sells seashells on the seashore, and he wears shoes, I'm sure. Yeah, no, Marcel the Shell with shoes on, yes, which is this... Well, it's been out for a while. It came out in mid-2022 in America. I think it premiered at some film festivals in late 21.
Very late here.
So Marcel the Shell with Shoes On is a feature-length adaptation of a short film, and actually sort of series of short films made in like 2010, 2011, 2014 by Dean Fleischer Camp and co-written with Jenny Slate, who voices Marcel the Shell with shoes on. Jenny Slate, by the way, is an actress, comic actress who I really enjoy. Every time she's on screen, I really, really enjoy her. Do you know who I mean when I say
Jenny Slate,
she's really funny, and she made this film called Obvious Child about 10 years ago, which was about... it was really interesting at the time. This was in 2014, and the story is she has like a one night stand with this guy, and that's how they begin dating, and she gets pregnant straight away. But it's like very quickly she's like, I'm having an abortion, and that's happening. And they're like, okay, cool. And then they date and stuff, but the pregnancy and the abortion is stuff in the background. And sorry, this is a massive tangent, but people at the time were like, this is really interesting because most pregnancy films, Juno, Knocked Up, actually don't talk about abortion, or they talk about it in a very small amount, which is not representative of the lived experience of a lot of unexpected pregnancies, unplanned pregnancies in the world or the United States. And take Juno, for example, there's just one scene in it which is about abortion, which is not representative. But anyway, Jenny Slate managed to make a romantic comedy which had abortion in the background, and it was like it was a really charming film and really successful. So ever since then, I've been like following Jenny Slate, and I'm like, oh, I really like what she does. And so she's cropped up in this again, and she's obviously been involved in the project for several years now. How to explain Marcel the shell with shoes on? It's funny following Ant-Man because it is on a similar theme. Marcel is a 1 inch tall shell, and he's got one eye, and he's got these shoes which are kind of like basketball shoes with like painted pink front bits, toe caps. He's very cute, and he kind of talks like that. He's Marcel the shell. And the film begins, and the story is that it's set in an Airbnb house, right? I have to say that the way the film sets up its story, it kind of just begins, and I think it could have been a little less vague, because I did spend 10 minutes going, okay, so hang on, this guy wasn't freaked out by finding a shell, etc. Anyway, the setup is this: it's a house that is an Airbnb, home, and guests come and go, and you become very quickly aware that there used to be a whole community of shells, and actually not just shells, but like the miscellaneous detritus of life is alive. So a tampon found on the floor, or a button, a sewing. These random pieces are actually sentient and actually live together. And there's a whole community, and you're aware that now actually it's just Marcel and his grandmother, who's voiced by Isabella Rossellini in a very sort of charming, hello Marcello, she says, oh dear boy. And you are introduced to this world where everything is small scale, and it's like got that kind of playfulness of Toy Story, or like, I suppose you could say the original Ant-Man's, of seeing our world rendered very small and being interacted with someone at a completely different scale. So Marcel will squeeze a bottle of honey to dip his feet in it so he can stick it on the wall so he can walk up the side of it. Nice. He will he's attached string from the electric food mixer to the tree outside, and when he turns it on, the mixer shakes the branch so the oranges fall. Then he can bring the oranges inside so they can eat. He will wait by the dripping tap, the faucet for the water to come, and he'll take a sip out of it. And he's learned to adapt, and very quickly, very early on, he says, it was more of us before, and it was easier to have a community when there was 20 or more of us, but now it's just me and my grandma. But we just try and get along. And in this richly detailed world, like I say, there's beautiful. He has this sort of table set with his grandmother where they sit on different sized champagne corks, and that's their like bar stools, but it just works completely. Anyway, so he's being filmed by Dean, played by Dean Felicia Clamp, who directed the film, who was a guest in this Airbnb house, and he's just saying, "Oh, I'm just making a film about you. I just want to." And he's like, "What do you mean? And what's a documentary?" It's kind of like, "No, I'm not going to be in it. It's just going to be about you." And there's these interviews, and you're introduced to this world. I suppose the broad narrative is getting to know Marcel, his relationship with his grandmother, and also he's kind of yearning this quest to find out what happened to his family, as he calls them, the wider collection of people, and seeing if they can track them down. He's obsessed with 60 Minutes, the TV show in America, right? He and his grandma they watch it all the time, and he's like, oh, I really want to, maybe they can see what happened. So Dean not only documents Marcel, but also tries to help him uploading the videos onto YouTube and online to see if he can help track down what happened to Marcel. That's the broad story as such. I think there's been a lot of rave reviews about Marcel, and I can see why. I really liked it. I think it's a really lovely film. I think I stopped short of like shouting about it in a really profound way that other people do, but I think it's a really good, solid 4-star film. 90 minutes long. It's just perfect. It has the imagination and themes, depth of the best of Pixar, but it's executed in a very sort of minimal aesthetic. Whereas you associate big Hollywood animation to be bright, colorful, loud. Let's go. This is it shot on very, very cool color palette, whites, browns, domestic looking colors, and I should say it's actually
like windowsills and kind of
exactly.
things.
It's set and shot in the real world. It's
Yes,
not.
yeah.
I mean, just in case people weren't sure, but Marcel obviously is almost like a stop motion shell, and up close you can see he's actually been. Crafted, and it's like the best of Aardman when you see that Wallace and Gromit and Chicken Run.
Yeah,
like
you
that.
can see fingerprints on the plasticine sometimes.
And that is part of the charm. Comparing to something like Ant-Man Quantumania, which is that you can't see any human touch on any of this.
Yeah.
When you're up close with he and his grandmother, it's beautiful. There's a lot in it. It's incredibly smart and touching and playful and witty, not just in the dialogue. There's some really funny lines in it. There was one line that my girlfriend found absolutely hilarious. I mean, I found it funny, but she just couldn't believe it. But it's also very visually witty, just in the way it creates that small-scale world and about how he interacts with it. And his interaction with Dean as a filmmaker as well. And then through that kind of visual wit, it kind of breaks through to deeper themes about life and death, about love and loss, about isolation, loneliness, aging, generational differences, but also about how much our environment and the people in our lives define our identity, and how that kind of thing of no man's an island, and how it really, Marcel is someone who is both very good at being on his own because he's having to, or at least independent in that he has to look after his grandmother. He's just got on with it, but also, and he's very proud of that, but also he does miss his family and he does want to get them back. But that's also reflected on Dean. You're getting the impression that Dean, the filmmaker, is only staying in this Airbnb because he's had a trouble in his relationship as well. You're also becoming aware that the Airbnb itself has only been rented out as an Airbnb because the couple that used to live there had a massive row and sort of split apart, and then the house became an Airbnb place. So this kind of theme of loneliness and also connection is there. It's very sweet, very touching, and moving. And there were a couple of points towards the end I thought, damn it, I'm actually really emotionally invested, and I feel choked up by this thing. There were a couple of beats you think, oh, damn, yeah, that was quite moving. Some great lines and just things that put a smile on your face. Like there's a bit where they accumulate dust on a tabletop, a glass tabletop. Marcel, this is why he's so heartwarming. He will accumulate, do these acts of kindness. He deliberately jumps on a sofa to spray dust on this glass tabletop. And for him and his grandmother, it's like ice skating. So like he'll do figure skates across the dust. And he's like, I usually do this at like Christmas time, but I think she needed a treat. And you're aware that the grandmother is in a state of decline. She's clearly got a little bit of dementia. And he says, grandmother, she's amazing. She actually came from the garage originally. That's why she has the accent. Yeah, she came here when she was very young via coat pocket. And that gives you a sense of the kind of the witty humor of it. There's this bit where, when they're trying to find what happened, Marcel is sort of looking at a map and he says, well, Dean, why don't we get up very high and we can see where the guy who used to live here went. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, when I want to see where things are, I go up on the mantle and I can see the whole house. And it cuts to him on the mantelpiece. He's like, you see what I mean? So we just need to get up very high. And so, Dean agrees to like take him out into the outside world and drive him up to the kind of the highest point he can find. And Marcel from the window of the car experiencing the new world it's just lovely and touching. So it's that thing that it's a small film with a big heart, and it does that thing which it should, is that having a hyper-focused, micro-specific location, rendering it big. I mean, yes, I think you can see the DNA of the fact that it used to be a short film in there, but I think that's fine.
Sirens on our end.
Yes, there are sirens here. They're not a fan of Marcel. I think this is it's a very accessible universal film. So if you would like a short, heartwarming, accessible, universal, but not dumbed down, very intelligent, deep, slightly philosophical film, then Marcel the Shell with Shoes On is definitely one to watch.
There's definitely something about this idea of like, you can do it at sort of very small scale, but you take the little things strewn across on a very small and insignificant, but like a byproduct of normal people living, but like you attribute loads of focus to it, and it's like really important for someone at that scale. All the things left behind, all the scale of it becomes really different. There's something about that which is like, oh yeah, like that very familiar, that's how we live, but like this is a new lens to view it through.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit where Marcel, he says, I'll get, like I said, the grandmother's in sort of poor health. He says, let me get you some water. And, Marcel has no arms. He just has legs and a mouth. So everything he moves, he has to either push with his body or grab with his mouth. And he runs, goes down the ladder. He comes back and he's carrying, like he would a tray on his head, a bottle cap that's filled with like 2 drops of water. And he's like, fresh water, fresh water. And she's like, oh, thank you, Marcello, thank you. And you're aware that like that's such a small thing, but that that's such an act of kindness at his level. And so to really get you invested in a familiar yet different world is really lovely. I think most people, it's a hard film to really dislike. It's really wholesome. So
then the title is also very cute.
Marcel the Shell with Shoes on. Yeah, exactly. It's lovely.
If you managed to see Marcel and you had any impressions of it, as always, send us your thoughts to hello@popkitchenpodcast.com. Time for emails. George, let us go through some of the questions that people wrote in. If you wanted to send an email to the show, you can do by writing into the email address I've said 4 times now on the show. It is hello@popkitchenpodcast.com. Hannah wrote into that very email address, and she says, hey guys, last time I wrote in, I asked about your controversial movie opinions, and I think it's pretty cool that other people are now sharing theirs at the end of emails because of it.
Yeah, please send them in, guys.
Thank you.
We've been enjoying those.
Now, I think it's only fair for me to share one of mine, and I have a feeling it will upset a lot of people. But I'm not really the biggest fan of Call Me By Your Name. I've tried watching it a few times, but it's never clicked for me. I appreciate you for trying, because like you appreciate you might have missed something. I do think it's very well made with amazing cinematography and acting, but I just can't enjoy it for some reason. Maybe I'm missing something. Also, I find it funny that you were correctly able to guess that I'm British just because I said, hey lads, best wishes, Hannah. Hannah, you haven't, you said for some reason, is there a reason that, like, is there something specific about it that you don't like or that doesn't connect with you? Because you just said it's got amazing cinematography and acting, but I can't enjoy it for some reason. But I think I can speak for both of us when we say we do disagree.
Well, I don't. No. I actually do see what Hannah.
Speak for you
Hannah,
again.
right?
Hannah.
Yeah, I do see Hannah's point because I've seen Call Me by Your Name 3 times.
I think twice.
Okay, and I like it, but I don't love it as much as other people. There are people who, every person I've watched it with has always liked it more than me. Okay. And like, I really do like it, but I think my thing is that my primary enjoyment of that film is an aesthetic experience, not an emotional one, right? Oh. So I love the cinematography and the lusciousness of it, and the sensuousness. I just adore it. Okay, I love it, and I do, feel connected to the emotional journey of the film, but it's not something like the before films where I'm just suddenly emotionally ready and connecting with it. I think it might be also that the film is quite subtle and a little bit cryptic, actually.
It doesn't rely on dialogue a lot at all. It's a lot of looks and exchanges.
Exactly. And it's a very, the film is much more cryptic than I think it lets on. I think the kind of bucolic, beautiful setting belies the fact there's a lot of cryptic dynamic happening. And,
Michael Stuhlbarg's a lot of unspoken understanding, isn't it?
And that's the thing. I don't know whether this is
me why I like it.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know whether this is me just missing it. But it wasn't until the 3rd time that I watched it that I realised what Michael Stuhlbarg was actually saying.
Oh, go on.
In his spoilers for Call Me by Your Name.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. So in that I love that scene anyway. That is very emotional when he talks to Elio at the end after Oliver's gone, and he says, this love that you have, don't crush it. Otherwise, if you do that, by the time you're in middle age, you'll be barren and broken. And what I missed, and that I get now, is that the dad is actually saying to him, I've experienced the same-sex love in my life for someone, and that's why Elio says, "Does Mum know?" And he says, "No, I don't think so. This is something between us." And I understand. I just missed it. The first 2 times I just thought he was saying like, your love in general, but I understand that he was saying, no, see it from my perspective. Yes, I have a loving family, I love Brew, but actually I've had the same kind of love that you have, that you feel. And that's brilliant, but it's just a sign of how cryptic it can be. I do like it. Don't get me wrong, I like the film, but I respect and understand Hannah's point of view because I can see a little bit of that myself as well.
Well, there you go, Hannah. You are not alone.
You are not alone. Okay, next up, we had some comments on our YouTube video as well, and I just want to read out
some comments, guys. Drop some hot takes and comments.
I want to read out Evan's comment on last week's episode because he picked up on the fact that I talked about Mysterious Skin, that film from 2004 I watched, which I still thinking about. I think it's one of the best films I've seen in a long time. Evan says, agreed on Mysterious Skin. Another honourable mention for Joseph Gordon-Levitt fans, though, is Rian Johnson's debut film, Brick. It's an old-school noir mystery at a modern-day high school. Really good film with great performances. Also interesting to see Rian Johnson wear his mystery film influences on his sleeve and see where he has taken that now with the Knives Out franchise. The fact that Mysterious Skin and Brick released basically right on top of each other speaks about how talented Joseph Gordon-Levitt really is. Keep it up, guys. Love the pod.
Nice.
I have seen Brick once, and I remember liking it, and I remember thinking, yeah, it's very noiry, and I love the genre smash. I mean, Rian Johnson loves playing with genre.
Is that an Anchorman spin-off with Steve Carell?
Break, no, if only. Yeah. The thing about Mysterious Skin that's also, no pun intended, crept under my skin since I've seen it is that it's got a really great soundtrack that is just full of dream pop shoegazing stuff. So if you like Cocteau Twins, Ride, Slow Dive, Sigur Rós, things like that, you're in good company.
Next up is from Jack, who writes in and says, hey guys, I believe this is my third time writing in.
Well.
I just wanted to talk about the new Puss in Boots movie.
Oh,
Jack,
right.
friend of the show.
Hey, Jack.
Third time writing in, friend of
That's
the show.
good. That's good work.
You got to earn the friend of the show moniker.
Yes.
Know? Like we have some few friends of the show.
It's a moniker you dish out. I mean,
I just go, oh yeah, friend of the show.
Friend of the show. Yeah, we know him.
Yeah. Jack writes in and he says, I've just watched the movie and I think it's really great with a really interesting story about death for a kid's film. But I'm quite surprised with the insane amount of praise it is receiving. It currently sits at number 100 of the highest rated films ever on Letterboxd with a 4.3 rating, which to me is an insane achievement. Just wondering if you've seen this movie and your opinion on its reception. Thanks, Jack. I've also heard good things, but from people I work with who've taken their kids to see it. They're like, oh, it's actually really good, which is the audience.
That is the only thing that matters, really, yeah.
And they were like, oh, yeah, like we had a really nice time. But like, I've not thought much on that comment. But if someone's writing in saying it's actually really good, I saw it's on a lot of buses at the moment in London, and it has the best movie in the Shrek universe, and the S is the Shrek is Shrek.
Yes, yeah.
And I was like, interesting claim.
Interesting claim. I know, because it really has little connection to the Shrek franchise.
From my memory, Shreks 1 and 2 are good, and the rest... Were there 4?
There were 4. I never saw the 4th. The third one I thought was okay.
Shrek the third.
I watched the third one.
Shrek 4 Ever After, that was it.
You know, when we were younger,
Yeah.
there would always be a bloke who would come round with like DVDs in plastic wallets, with really badly photocopied.
Of course. Yeah.
I watched Shrek 3 and 300 off of one of those. The 300
rip DVDs.
Yeah, the 300 rip was really good. The Shrek 3 was not so good.
Some of them were really bad. Some of them were like literal recordings in a cinema. But yeah.
We don't condone film piracy. I'm just saying it's the experience of a film viewer.
It really was in the noughties. Yeah. You would just end up buying loads of ripped
from
DVDs.
a dodgy guy in a raincoat.
I remember we went to Thailand and we came back in our suitcase with like 30 DVDs.
How many of them did work on your Region 2 player?
Yeah, no, I think they did work. They were really good, but some of them were just like terrible.
On Puss in Boots, though.
It's cool to comment on the fact that it's sitting at number 100 of highest film. I think it's one of those films where, because it's only seen or only rated in so many ways, it can be artificially inflated by like a very few positive reviews, which I think happens on Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes a lot.
Also, is there a slight dose of irony that people are like, it's the second Puss in Boots film, which is clearly a much belated sequel to a franchise that's over like 15 years old.
Does Antonio Banderas still voice
Yes,
Puss
he
in
is.
Boots?
He's the voice of Puss in Boots. I don't think I've looked up the cast list. I don't think there's any sort of Mike Myers doesn't come in as Shrek for a brief bit, but God, I've seen Shrek.
That would get you into the cinema.
I am in.
They got Michael Myers.
I've seen Shrek so many times. Do you realise?
Shrek 1.
Yeah,
I remember
Shrek 1.
being would have been in year 2 at the time, and someone was like, "Oh, I just saw Shrek in the cinema. It's so funny." And I was like, "What the hell is a Shrek?" It's like shipwreck. Like a Shrek. I remember seeing it and be like, "This is such a lovely little satire of the fairy tale." I didn't say that as a kid.
Oh, I think it was a winning satire of the fairy tale genre.
The future film podcast. I actually thought it was a really great satire of the fairy tale genre.
I think I am. I don't have anything against seeing Puss in Boots, whatever it's called, the Last Miracle or the Last thing. But I just it's just not. It's not. You know. I'll be okay if I miss it.
I think the film is about the fact that Puss in Boots dies and he's a cat on his 9th life.
Right.
And it's like, oh, now this is your last one.
Right.
I think it's about death and what you do.
All right. Sounds a bit like Marcel the Shell with shoes on. Next up, we have an email from Anthea, or she signs off Annie. She says, "Hello, been a listener since the early days.
Ooh.
Think I found you around episode 9.
Oh, that is early.
That's when we still did food. That's 2021, I think, still.
Whoa.
Not through TikTok, though. Other socials or recommendation.
What?
But by nosing at what the person next to me was listening to on a train from London to Manchester.
No.
Wow. Possibly a travel faux pas, but hey, it worked well for me.
That is like a really organic spread.
That is amazing.
Looking and seeing. It would have been our faces like,
Yeah.
with our little like hands out.
Wow. And so episode 9, you took the chance to listen to something someone was on. Also,
a good thumbnail.
Is that listener who listened? If you listened to our podcast on a train from London to Manchester in late 2021, early 2022, are you listening to this show right now? Because if you are, that means Annie was there.
Were you on a train?
Were you on a train?
Episode 9 we put out in October, would have been close to Christmas.
Yeah.
December. I want to say December.
Was there a woman next to you sort of nosing over your screen to go?
I'm also interested to know because if you listen on Spotify, you can watch the video the video that's on YouTube plays as on Spotify because they have that feature now. I'm wondering if it was just the vertical, podcast still thumbnail, or if she was watching us as a video, which I think would help you go, what are you listening to? Because video is more engaging.
Good story though. I love that. Anyway,
great. Sorry.
Annie's question is this: classic dinner party fodder question with a film twist. I'd love to know the 5 film people, actors, directors, etc., dead or alive, that you'd love to have over for a Pulp Kitchen dinner party.
Yes.
Also, just wanted to say I loved your before episode. I loved the trilogy for a long time, and it's a series that my brother, cousin, and I always come back to when we're chatting about films. So that episode was a joy. I'm sure as film-focused London lads, you're already aware, but as a public service announcement, if you fancy watching it on the big screen again, and she sends a link to the Prince Charles Cinema, who are showing the entire trilogy at the moment. So if you are London-based or near London, you can check that out.
And you can listen to our before film trilogy sort of review, look back. That's on the feed.
It sits there for people to listen to. James, 5 people we need to...
It is a classic question. Did we do a version of this? I want to say...
In my first game...
First one.
We played a game and I gave you 3 people and you either had to work with them, go for dinner with them, or have them over for Christmas for 2 weeks and meet the family. And it was like the 3 Chris's, Chris Pratt, Chris Evans. And we should play it again, really. I quite like that game. But... yeah.
I think it's good to have, in this hypothetical dinner party of random people from the industry, it's good to have a mix. You don't want it to be all comedians.
No.
You don't want it to be all very super serious, intense types. You want to have a nice... And also you don't want them all to be directors, because all they do is talk about directing. You want to mix it up.
And
who comes to your mind?
Well, the first person I think of and I immediately... actually don't put in there is Quentin Tarantino, because I think of someone who's chatty and engageable. He'd dominate the whole thing.
What you're saying.
Exactly. So no, I actually was thinking of partly because, first of all, I'd say Ethan Hawke, because I would love to meet him, and also you've just reminded me of the Before films, and I've seen he is always very open to having as good. He's a bit like his character in the Before films. He's always open to having a light-hearted but serious conversation about deeper things.
Yes.
There's a great reel going around on TikTok. I think I've told you before. Where he's like, what is cinema if it's not, if you can't connect with it? I think it's something like poetry. Anyway, he's just brilliant like that. And I also think this could be too much, but I'm wondering if someone like Jim Carrey.
It's literally my choice.
Although Jim Carrey can do mania and he could do big, but and he would be entertaining, but he can also be so very chill.
And he'd come out with some wisdom just out of nowhere.
So I think you can have Jim Carrey as long as you balance him out. So I think Jim Carrey and Ethan Hawke. Well, I was thinking Greta Gerwig, actually. Because Greta Gerwig is interesting because she's obviously a great career. Director.
Writer? Does she write?
Yeah, and writer, of course. So, very intelligent, very funny as well. Yeah. And in fact, it'd be interesting if you could do couples. Because you could have Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach come. You could have John Krasinski and Emily Blunt come.
Yeah.
You could have... Give me others.
I would like to have, personally, like a Martin Freeman. Because he's funny, polite, smart. You don't like Martin Freeman?
I just think he could be a little too dry and a little terse, a little bit acerbic.
I think I've seen him in behind the scenes stuff. He's funny.
Yeah, but funny in a slightly mean way.
Do you think so?
I think
so. He's a little bit like
Martin. I'm sorry for listening. I don't know you at all.
Please come on the show. And then a person I want to speak to is Andy Serkis, who's an actor I still think is underrated, even though despite everything, he directs, he acts, and I think he's always going to give I think he's also a very polite dinner guest based on no experience. I think, you know what I mean? He's very like humble and normal and nice, and I think he would be very interesting. I'd love to get a really serious person in and sit them next to a Jim Carrey. Like I'd get Steve McQueen to come in.
Oh wow!
And talk about
that's really good.
I think he's a great filmmaker, but he's a very serious interview. You ask him a question, he goes, no, and it's very direct, and no, that's not how I'd see it. And it
depends what you want out of your dinner party. Do you want sparks to fly and people to be ending up throwing pieces of turkey at each other, or is it like if you're serving turkey, or do you want people to be going, yes, I love you too.
Like, do you want a wild night?
Yeah.
Like, do you want that's the thing.
It's like, I always thought like he's not technically a film person, but like Bret Easton Ellis would have been a really good person to a dinner party. Bret, who wrote American Psycho and Less Than Zero and all that stuff. And I've seen him speak in public, and he's a great raconteur, but he would say something that would rub someone up the wrong way. He would challenge someone.
But it's like, do you just get to watch these people have the dinner party? Are you like with it? Do you really care if you never see these people again? Like, what's the goal? Do you want the most like interesting conversation, or do you want everyone to have a good time? Because I'd say if this is only happening once, you know.
I think couples is a more interesting one, because then you definitely get two for the price of one in a way.
I think Adam Sandler's good fun.
Who's you just mean?
No, I'm just saying it's separately. I think I'd have him be good fun.
You know, actually thinking of because Marcel's in my mind, Jenny Slate would be a really good addition. And also, because Jenny Slate isn't like super, super famous, she wouldn't be walking into the room with a massive ego or a massive sort of filter. I think if you had Jenny Slate...
I want Sandra Bullock.
Really?
I want to be her friend.
And what makes you say that? I mean, not that I doubt that she'd be, you know...
I just think she's like really loyal and grounded, but also has this like very successful air about her. And I want to like watch... You know, when you... My sister once was in a restaurant, and George Clooney and Matt Damon came and sat down with their partners. I don't know Matt Damon's wife, and she was like, the way they move and interacted, they just radiated confidence and star quality. And she was like, I couldn't stop staring because they were just so confident. And I want to almost like capture that magic of like what it is that gives people that quality. And I'd love to watch it and see.
Okay, I'm going to actually replace Ethan Hawke with Bob Odenkirk. The reason I say Bob Odenkirk, because he's comic backgrounds, he's funny, but he's also gives a wonderful, wholesome, like dad-like vibe. And he can talk seriously if he wants to. And I think if Jim Carrey's there, Bob can not only interact and understand Jim Carrey as a fellow comedian, but also keep him brought down to a level. I think you then have Greta Gerwig, who worked with Bob Odenkirk on Little Women. Great. Throw in Steve McQueen as well, who's there to sort of see if he can engage in some way. He's the one you're not sure he will stay for dessert.
Yeah.
And then we need a fifth person.
Do you think we need someone who's dead?
Oh my God, a dead person. These are people all alive.
All alive. Like, we could throw like Marilyn Monroe in there. And just
again, but that would be all about her.
Tarantino. Like, can I see your feet? Because I want to...
That's a really good one. We need a dead person. I don't think it can be someone too big like Elvis stuff, because it just dominates.
Just like, everyone be like, that's Marilyn Monroe.
You need someone who...
I bet Kate Blanchett loves a drink and a nice little dinner party.
She does seem like fun.
She seems like fun. All business during the day, but like she give you, come on, okay, let's go to the pub.
You know what? I do think Audrey Hepburn would be a good guest, because she did a lot of humanitarian work as well in her career.
Yeah, and
she would have a lot to say. Good dinner party chat about serious stuff. You know, guys, can we get serious for a second, please? I'm worried if Jim Carrey be too loud. We are really thinking about this.
It'd be interesting to see like Brando and Steve McQueen have a conversation.
You mean Steve McQueen, the director?
Steve McQueen, the director.
Not Steve McQueen, the actor.
Yeah, no.
And Marlon Brando.
And like a Marlon Brando, like big, difficult person.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh my God, no. Wait. That is a really good shout. Because
by the way,
also,
I don't know if Steve McQueen's difficult. I've just...
No, you're sorry. We give him the wrong thing. He's not difficult.
No.
Let me just rephrase that. He's very sincere, serious, and passionate about the work that he does. That's what we meant to say.
What an incredibly... director.
Do you know what would work? I think if you did have Marlon Brando, because Marlon Brando was... a figure who was controversial in his approach, because he didn't want to play the system. But I think someone like Steve McQueen would really appreciate that. But also Marlon Brando...
Jim Carrey speaking to Mark, right?
Yeah. And then also Marlon Brando stood up a lot for the rights of Native Americans in the US. And also... he's just got so many layers to Marlon Brando. You know, apparently, I mean, this was confirmed by Richard Pryor's wife. You know Richard Pryor?
Yeah.
They said that actually Richard Pryor and Marlon Brando had a decade-long affair with each other.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. So like the stories that Marlon.
When did that come out?
A few years ago. I remember it was in a
Really?
pub quiz I did in lockdown.
How
Please
interesting.
check that fact before you
Pinch of salt.
throw that around. But I'm pretty sure Richard Pryor's widow came out and confirmed it. But regardless, Marlon Brando would have loads of stories in the same way that Audrey Hepburn would have stories. So
Oh, you know who'd be...
hang on.
Oh, sorry.
We've got 6 now.
Carrie Fisher would be a great dinner party
great
guest.
one.
Loads of stories.
That's good.
She's interesting. She's fun. She's been a script supervisor on everything. I'd also just love to meet her and talk to her, which obviously very sad you can't do.
Great.
She would be great.
Shout. Okay, Carrie. So we've got Carrie, Greta,
Jim.
Audrey, Jim, Bob, and Marlon.
Tarantino potentially.
No, not Tarantino. That's too much. That's 7. Plus me and you, that's 9. Can we just throw in one more person to make it 10?
Tarantino. Fuck
No,
it.
no,
Let's
too
see
much.
Sparks fly.
I think maybe you're right.
else did we mention?
Maybe in that loud group of people.
Because you have break-off conversations.
Sure.
You know what you don't want?
You'd want to
Sandra
see
Bullock. Get her in there.
Quentin is maybe. I think we'd do Quentin. Maybe
Clooney.
Clooney's.
Clooney's doing that film with Matt Damon about Nike.
He's in
About
that with Ben
Jordan.
Affleck.
No, I'm thinking Ben
Ben
Affleck.
Affleck.
George Clooney is filming something with Brad Pitt right now, and I get behind the scenes.
You know
on
what?
TikTok. Anyway,
I think we spent too long on this question, but that's 9. That's that. We've answered your question. We really have thought about it.
you could play this game for hours.
Yes.
we could get bored out, and we could sort
hang
of
on.
really we could do the table setting. and
Okay,
who sits
the
where.
placemats. Okay,
Yeah, we
but-
won't do that, but
Maybe another time, but for now, we're just going to say it's James and I, and we're hosting Marlon Brando, Audrey Hepburn, Jim Carrey, Steve McQueen, the director, Greta Gerwig, Bob Odenkirk. Who have I missed? That's 7. That's it. That's it.
Brando. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
it. That
7.
was
There
it.
we go. Moving on. James, we end this week's episode with another round of Guess the Movie in one word. We've been doing
Okay.
this for a few weeks now.
Yes.
I hope people understand the rules of the game by now. I've got 2 rounds for you.
Okay.
As before, I'm going to read one word out and you have to guess the movie in a quick fire game.
Okay.
Okay. So, James, guess the movie in one word. 3, 2, 1. Iceberg.
Titanic.
Bus.
Bus. Speed.
Correct. Jacuzzi.
Hot tub time machine.
Correct. Tunnel.
Tunnel.
It's niche.
Ooh.
It's Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Ah, okay.
Prom.
Prom.
Carrie.
Ah, yes, yes.
It's hard, but there's loads.
Okay.
Pirates.
Of the Caribbean.
No, it's not in the title. Pirates.
Pirates.
Captain
Hook.
Phillips. Captain
Oh,
Phillips. But
okay,
okay, see,
okay.
yeah. Truancy.
Truancy. Oh, it's Ferris Bueller's Day
Yes,
Off.
well done. Blue.
Avatar.
Yes. Sisters.
Sisters could be.
Little Women.
Okay, good.
Divorce.
Marriage Story.
Correct. Basement.
Saw? No.
Recent.
Basement. Room?
No.
No.
Barbarian.
Barbarian.
Manson.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Well done. Little Women has a lot of things in it.
Little Women, yeah.
But I thought Sisters.
I got the comedy with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler.
I know.
Was that what's that called? Is it called?
It's called Sisters.
Yeah.
Just to clarify for our listeners, if the name of the
Yes, that's the rule.
the word will never be in the title of the film.
Yes.
So if like last week we had Peach or whenever it was,
Wouldn't be James and the Giant.
It can't be
Peach.
James and the Giant. Yeah, exactly.
Sisters was the only film that came out
During The Force
in
Awakens.
the month of The
Yeah.
Force Awakens because everything else cleared.
Yeah. Okay. Should we do another round?
Let's do it.
Let's do another round of
How did you do at home?
guess the movie in one word.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Facebook.
The Social Network.
Strudel.
It's Inglorious Bastards.
Yes. Pig.
Babe.
Babe. Yes. Babe. Weinstein.
She Said.
Correct. Meteor.
Armageddon.
No, I've realised how actually.
Don't Look Up.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Sound. Sand.
And Attack of the Clones.
June.
June. Okay.
Queen.
Queen. could be Elizabeth, the Golden Age, or could be
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Okay.
Crash.
Crash. Oh, it's so vague.
It's a trick one,
Crash. Really. It's obviously not Crash, but it could be... No, go on.
The Big Short.
Yeah, okay.
Kidnapped.
Hard Candy.
No. But that's... Wow, what a reference.
Hold on. Kidnapped could be Man on Fire?
No. You had it in the last round. Captive. Room.
Okay.
Octopus. Old Boy. And last of all, Vigilante.
Batman. Kick-Ass.
No. This is but more specific as I thought. Watchmen.
Okay. With that,
I realise I have to apologise because I do realise in reading those through to you,
it's hard because
there
so
are
many things.
like Meteor. I should have thought, of course, Armageddon. And
even though I still think it's okay to have like 2 or 3.
it's okay to have 2 or 3. Yeah, I mean,
I like Crash for the big Short.
Yeah.
So I was thinking like Collision, Explosion.
Exactly.
But really, it was.
I also
Crash of numbers.
People should know I wrote these on the tube on the way here,
which is fine.
But also it works because we'll have comments now. Where people going, "Excuse me, Meteor is obviously Armageddon. Actually, it's Deep Impact."
Yeah, Deep Impact.
I'm like, whatever. All the comments are good. All the comments are good. That was the games we had this week.
That is all we have time for on this show of Pulp Kitchen. Thank you so much for listening, as always, to this episode. We really appreciate people who make it to the end of the show. Don't forget, we post new episodes of this podcast every single Wednesday. I think I've missed the last 4 Wednesdays, and I'm sorry. But don't forget, I tried to post them on Wednesdays. If it happens on Thursday, I'm sorry. I'm busy, but it always comes through no matter what.
Absolutely. Yeah, stick with us. We will. The episode will absolutely come out. It will be coming. It might be late, but it will definitely.
I was
come
literally
out.
like the video was like 96% exported, and someone commented, "Where's the episode, guys?"
Yeah,
and I'm like, "It's coming."
Thanks for making it to the end of the episode. Don't forget to send us your thoughts, and if there are films that we haven't talked about, new or old, that you want to hear us talk about as well, we're always interested to hear about that. Or if you've just seen a film that you're really passionate about and you want to just send in some thoughts about it, head up pulpkitchenpodcast.com. It's there for a reason.
Seeing films we're interested in, but we think you guys are interested in, so it's always trying to find that. And if you are listening to this, please give us a like. It really helps the YouTube algorithm, whether that's on Spotify or on Apple or on wherever you listen. Find a way to just sort of show your appreciation, and it tells all the algorithms to send more people our way. Go and subscribe. It makes a huge difference. If you want to see more shenanigans, us at premieres, doing fancy things, getting our shiny shoes on, at Pulp Kitchen Podcast on Instagram and TikTok.
It really helps. And just like, subscribe and all that.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.